Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be learning what rates and unit rates are, along with unit prices. So listen your composition notebook. It is 6-1, day 2. Let's get started. Okay, we want to remind ourselves that a ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. And now we start to update that definition and we shift into what rates and unit rates are. So the first thing that you're going to take down is the definition of what a rate is. A rate is a special type of ratio that compares quantities that are in different units. Two examples for you. Right here we see a special rate that is listed as 700 words per 3 pages. Notice that when I said that division bar, I used the word per. That's how we describe rates. And then the second example of a rate that we wrote down was something like 80 yards per 10 seconds. One job that we're going to have to do today is just being able to write a rate to describe the situations below. So if I look at the first one, it says a dozen eggs for $1.19. First, something that I want to do is always compare price to size. So I'm always going to have the price of my item in the numerator if I think about sort of fractions to help me. So I have $1.19. And then I have to know, how much is a dozen? Are you thinking 12? Because you're right there. And just writing the ratio would be $1.19 per 12 eggs. The other thing that we're going to notice in this chapter for us when we're dealing with ratios and rates and unit rates is the labeling is important for us to know what we're comparing. Our next situation says 120 students for 3 buses. So we're just going to write it in a rate form where we use our labeling. So we have 120 students per 3 buses. I'm labeling, I'm also using the fraction bar to describe the word per. Okay, next we're going to learn what is a unit rate. A unit rate is a special type of rate with a denominator of 1. So what we do is we take our rates and we divide away our denominator to get it in a measure of 1 per that unit. If we look at our first example that we see right here, we have 2 things going on. The first comparison describes a rate. That describes 80 yards in or per 10 seconds. To get us to jump to a unit rate, we are dividing away 10 from the denominator, and that means that whatever we do to the denominator to make it equal, we have to do the same math to the numerator. So we are dividing away 10 from 80 to get a unit rate of 8 yards per second. In the next example that we see here, we have 140 heartbeats in 2 minutes. So again, this side now we're looking at, and this is describing a rate. And to find the unit rate, we are trying to get a denominator of 1, so that means dividing away 2 from both the numerator and the denominator. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then 140 divided by 2 leaves us with 70. So this piece right here, 70 heartbeats per minute, is described as our unit rate. What we're going to look at next is just being able to find the unit rate. And it entails 2 things. We first have to write the rate. Then after that, we divide away our denominator to find the unit rate. So looking at this example, it says a skydiver falls 144 feet in 3 seconds. So we're first going to write the rate. That's 144 feet in 3 seconds. And now we're going to find the unit rate. So I know I need 1 second in the denominator. Notice that I already write that. And the math of that is just dividing it by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 144 divided by 3 gives us 48 feet. And we box out, that is our unit rate. Our next example, it says a car travels 676 miles in 13 hours. So our first job is to write the rate. That would be 676 miles. Notice we're labeling everything in or per 13 hours. Next, we're trying to find our denominator of 1. So notice I'm setting them equal because we're going to divide these away. It's almost like we're going back to sort of those reducing of our ratios like we learned. So we're going to divide away 13 from both. That gives us 1 hour in the denominator, and then 676 divided by 13 is 52. So we're left with the unit rate of 52 miles per hour. Okay, our next job is to understand, what do we mean by unit price? Unit price is a type of a unit rate, and it tells us the cost per 1 unit of what we want to buy. And when we talk about unit price, we are always making the comparison of price over size. The reason why we do that is because we divide away our size to compare our price per 1 of that unit. Why do we care about it? It's because when we compare unit prices, we start to determine a better buy situation of knowing which one is kind of the best bargain for us. And so let's look at these examples below to determine what is the better buy. Should we buy 2 liters of milk at $3.80 or 1.5 liters of milk at $2.70? Step 1 is to first set up our comparison. Remember, we're always going to set up price over size. So we have $3.80 per 2 liters. And we are going to find the unit price, which means the unit rate. We just have money that we're involving, so that's why we call it unit price. So we're going to take $3.80 divided by 2, and that gives us $1.90 per 1 liter. And then in the second example, what we do is we take our new price, so we're comparing it with $2.70 for 1.5 liters of milk, and we are going to divide away 1.5 from 270, and when we do that, we get $1.80 for 1 liter. And so now our last job is to compare which price is lower. Which one's the better bargain? Should we buy the one for $1.90 or the $1.80? You should be thinking the $1.80 one is the better buy. So then we conclude that it's the milk that's 1.5 liters for $2.70. That's the one that's going to give us the better buy. We can also use it for things like packs of pencils. So here's our next example that we see where 10 pencils cost $4. So we're first going to set it up price over size. So we have $4 for 10 pencils. And we're going to find the unit rate. So that's dividing away 10, which really is moving your decimal place back 1 spot. So it's 40 cents per 1 pencil. And then we have our other item, which is 6 pencils for $2.70. So we have $2.70 for 6 pencils. And we're going to divide away 6 to find the unit price. And when we do that, we get, for us, it's 45 cents. So 45 cents is what we get when we divide away 6. And now when you compare those two, which one's the better buy? Which one's the lower price? It would be purchasing 10 pencils for $4, since 40 cents is smaller than 45 cents. All right, let's keep practicing. Here's our final examples, just some word problems applying unit rate and unit price. The first one says, Mika can make 6 bracelets per half hour. How many bracelets can she make in 1 hour? Our first job is to set up the rate. So we know that she can make 6 bracelets in a half hour. And it's asking us now to find how many can she make in 1 hour. So notice that whole setup. We're comparing our 2 items, and then we're making equivalent sort of ratios is what we're going back to here. And now I have to find the factor. What times a half hour gets us to an hour? That would be times 2. And so now, whoops, it flipped on us here. There we are. Here we're back. And so now we have 6 times 2 is 12 bracelets in 1 hour. And that would be our unit rate. The next one says Melissa is driving to her grandmother's house. In the first 3 hours of the drive, she travels 159 miles. What is Melissa's average speed? Step 1 is to first write the rate. So we have 159 miles in 3 hours. And to find our average speed, what we're trying to do is find the unit rate. We're trying to figure out how many miles is she traveling per 1 hour, or miles per hour. So we're going to divide away 3 from 159, and we end up getting 53 miles per hour. Our last one is just another better buy example. So it says a half dozen carnations for $4.75, or is the better buy a dozen carnations for $9.24. Remember, we always want to do what again? You should be thinking price over size. So we have $4.75 per. Now, how many is a half dozen? That would be 6 carnations. And we're going to need to divide away 6 from $4.75. So again, we're trying to figure out how much is it per one. And when we divide away 6, we get 79 cents. And then we have to do the better buy again. So now we're comparing, should we pay $9.24 for a dozen? And remember, a dozen is 12. And so then we're dividing away 12 to get 1, again, comparing the amount of 1. And $9.24 divided by 12 gives us 77 cents. Which one is the lower price? Which one's the better buy? It's purchasing the dozen carnations for $9.24, since 77 cents is smaller than 79 cents. All right, finish up your note sheets, and we'll see you in class. Take care.